What is up, everyone? Jeremy here, and I am thrilled to announce that my audio company, AugustRose Audio, just launched a brand new plugin. This is called the Faux-Tin 808 Overdrive. It is based on my incredible Faux-Tin modded TS808 Overdrive, and if you have the King, or if you are familiar with the King amp sim, which we released a few months ago, you'll know this pedal exists already in the digital realm in the King's pedal board section, but this standalone version has a ton of new features that are going to make dialing in and crafting tones much easier, and I want to walk through the features with you now and give you some examples of what the presets, the factory presets that come with it, sound like. So let's just go ahead and jump into it now. All right, so very first thing I want to do is just quickly walk through the different features that this plugin offers, because as I mentioned, if you have the King or if you've seen the King, you know that it includes this pedal in its pedal section here, as you can see. However, there is a lot more you can do with this standalone plugin version of the pedal than what comes in the King. So let's walk through that now. So obviously the very first thing we have is an input and output for your general gain staging. From there, it does have a built-in noise gate. So this is your threshold, adjust it like so. Turning it all the way to -80 effectively turns it off, so you can use your own noise gate if you'd want to. From there, we have a series of pre and post filters. So we have a low pass and a high pass, pre-filter and a post low pass and a post high pass filter. Now, these three buttons on the bottom, on each side, control the high pass filter slope. You have 6 decibel octave, 12 decibel octave, and 24 decibel octave. So if you want a more steep slope to just more sharply cut off the low end, you can do 12, something kind of in the middle, or I'm sorry, you can do 24, something in the middle, you know, less of a slope, not cutting off quite as fast. You can use the 12 decibel octave. And if you want a nice slow slope, use the 6 decibel octave. Then again, same thing with the post filters, 6, 12, and 24 decibel octave. And then the last thing is the mix knob, which is extremely powerful. And one of the main things that makes this so useful is that you can blend the process signal with your DI signal. And I think almost all the presets I have in here, there's only 5, but almost all of them I think have blending of the DI signal with the process signal, because it's just so powerful and it sounds so good. All right, and so one thing I want to show you here real quick is the difference in the pre-filters and the post-filters. So the pre-filters are obviously going to filter the DI signal coming in before it hits the overdrive circuit in the pedal. The post-filters are the opposite. It's going to be what comes out of the pedal before it leaves the plugin and goes out to your amp sim. So let's have a look at what things look like without any processing. So I'm just going to take the mix knob, pull it all the way to 0. And you can see on Fab Filter down here what the DI of my guitar coming straight. And this is just going straight into my API interface, into Reaper here, and then into ProQ. So that's the DI signal. Now, if we take this mix and turn it all the way up, and I'm not using any of the filters yet, so this is just what comes out of the pedal. So a nice hot signal coming out now because the pedal's pushing it harder. We're getting some overdrive and saturation from the overdrive switch here, or knob. Now let's go ahead and engage the pre-high pass before it hits the overdrive circuit. And I'll turn this up as I just play through some nonsense here, and you can see what happens. And then we'll play with the filters and you can watch those as well. So you can hear quite a big difference there, right? So essentially what we're doing is we're cutting off a lot of this low end from my DI coming straight off the guitar before it hits the circuit. So we're not adding a ton of saturation to the low end. Now, the big difference between the pre and post filters is this. We're gonna do the same thing with the post filters and watch what happens to the signal coming out of the plugin now. a much bigger difference. Why is that? It's because when you filter the low end or the high end, either way, the low or the high pass, before it goes into the overdrive pedal, the pedal is going to generate additional harmonics, additional sound, and boost those signals that are going into it. So even though you're cutting quite a bit of low end out, it's still going to generate content down low. And if you don't filter that out, hence the post filters, you're still gonna have some low end. So in all the presets that you'll see that I'm gonna show you here, I only basically use the post high pass because I don't want the low end coming out of the pedal to hit the amp, but I don't mind the low end going into the pedal because the saturation and the overdrive that comes out of it sounds good to me. So I'm typically gonna stick with the post high pass, and I typically don't ever use the 24 decibel octave. I'm sure there are plenty of uses for it, but the 12 and the 6 are typically what I'll tend to stick with. So let's go ahead and just kind of walk through these presets and hear what this thing sounds like going through the King. All right, so this is just obviously default, so we'll just hear this real quick. A little sloppy, but who cares? Let's just keep going. Thick chugs. Sounds really good. It does sound thick. And one of the things I want to point out here is we're using a couple of these features, specifically the mix knob is at 50%. So we're getting 50% of the process signal, 50% of the DI. And that is going to give us some of that decent low end coming through because we're cutting out some of the low end coming out of the plugin, out of the pedal here. So we're on the 6 decibel octave, cutting things starting around 90 hertz and off from there. So it's a slow taper. It's not cutting a ton, hence why we're getting those thick chugs from this preset. Then from there, we have the tight rhythm preset. So there you go. You can hear those are obviously much tighter than the thick chugs. And why is that? Well, it's because right here on the mix, we're doing 85% processed signal, so much less of the DIs coming through, hence less of the low end. And we're even cutting off more of the processed low end coming out of the plugin using the post high pass, starting our taper slope at 140 hertz and using the 12 decibel octave. So we're kind of slightly quicker dropping off some of those super lows. So still some low end coming through, but it's much tighter because we're cutting off more of it. And you can see we're actually cutting off a bit of the low end before it goes into the pedal as well to saturate less of the low end even before it hits the pedal. So that's where the tightness comes in, is controlling the low end. Scorching Leads. So this one is the reason I have Valhalla here, and that is because I wanted to add some echo and reverb and delay onto this, just to kind of give you an example of what, you know, a kind of a typical lead tone would sound like. Let's go ahead and just crank the gain on the amp, and then let's call out specifically what we're doing here in the plugin, and it's basically just taking the overdrive, cranking the thing all the way the hell up, pulling back the level just a little bit, and that's it. We're not cutting anything on the filters. It's 100% mix, and because it's a lead and we may want a sustain to ring out, you can see we pulled the gate back to all the way to -70. So what does it sound like? Yeah, so you can hear there's a ton of sustain in there, and that comes from just taking the overdrive and cranking all the way up on the pedal. So if we turn that off, here's the difference. Night and day on that one. It's totally night and day. All right, so the next one up has the wonderful name of Shit. That is because I was totally blown away, and I literally couldn't think of a better name for it, honestly. But I was blown away at the way that this sounded. It's really, really cool. So walking through what we've got here, we've got the overdrive all the way down, pulling back the tone just a little bit, leaving the level at default. We are not filtering on the pre-filters. We are using the post filters and the mix knob. Let's look at those here closely. So we are only using 35% of the process signal here. So this majority of this is going to be the DI. Now the filters come in. So we are filtering out some of the super high end. You can see it's like 15.1 kilohertz. And that's a starting there. So it's not killing everything at that point and up. It's just tapering off from there. So we're getting rid of some of those super highs, and then the post high pass. We're starting our slope here at 170 hertz, and we're using the 6 decibel octave, so it's not a fast slope. It's just kind of slowly tapering off to control some of the low end. And what I really liked about the way that this sounds, which you'll hear here in just a minute, and I'm going to A/B this. So you'll hear this preset, and then you'll hear one of the other presets side by side. So you can really hear how allowing more of the DI to come through and blending this with a controlled low end, and then taking the output and really cranking it up high, just sounds absolutely awesome. I love it. So let's give a listen to this, and you'll hear an A/B like I mentioned. Okay, so there you go. There's a quick A/B comparison between what the preset sounds like, allowing a good bit of that DI to come through, and without any DI signal, and just going 100% processed. And what I really like about it is how the way that the DI signal breaks up coming through the amp mixed with the process signal. I think it adds something special here, and I thought it sounded really good. All right, so that is the Faux-Tin 808 Overdrive plugin from AugustRose Audio. Definitely check out the 14-day free trial. You'll find the link for that down in the description below. If you dig it, go ahead and grab it while it's 50% off for the first month. It is on an intro deal for the first month only. You'll find all the details down below and on the website. So I hope you find this helpful in dialing in and crafting some heavy tones. And if you dig it, hit the comments down below and let me know your thoughts. And with that, I want to say thank you for watching, and thank you for your support.